Hey. What's going on, GOJ?
What's up, y'all? How you guys doing today?
Chilling. Dude, every time I hear your read your name, I think of like Snoop Dogg for some reason. Like D-O double G, but
A deal.
like GOJ. I'm like, that kind of belongs in like a rap song.
Right? Double OGOJ. What's up?
Yeah, you know. uh, how's your day going, fam? Work crazy?
Yo,
What's up, man?
Yo, what up, Sam?
just chilling at work, just got here. Hopefully it's a
Hey.
slow day so I don't have to keep cutting in and out.
Yeah, sorry about the topic change, man. I was like, you know what? I gotta ask. I gotta ask the people.
You know what, given the market right now, I think that's honestly a good topic.
Sick, man. I'm like, I like to cover like recent events or like things that like just happened. So I'm like, this seems like a good topic to just ask.
No, yeah, agreed.
So I mean, we're gonna give it a bit. I mean, like I said, I'm always early. Just if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. I mean, that's just how I've been taught.
That's a good rule. I'm always 15 minutes late.
So if you're 15 minutes early, you're gonna be on time.
Exactly.
Oh, Sam, you've been in these before, right? Like none of this intro stuff is new to you. Oh, somebody came. What about you, G?
Yeah, I've been to a few of these. Mostly listening
Alright.
in.
Yeah, man. I mean, just try to keep it fresh.
No, for sure, man. Those rules, man, they always get me.
Dude, I like I'd say like my first as soon as I came up with them, I mean obviously like I picked things apart from like, people I learned or like, things just like I picked up on, so like everything I'm teaching isn't new. But like I curate things to like myself. 'Cause I'm like,
No,
damn, I got that degen in me, so I know I have to have rules. And like
that's awesome, bro.
you gotta have
Build
them,
off of everyone, make your own rules, and then dominate the market.
so I know everyone's following the rules,
Right?
so I know a step above.
I'm telling you, I got a
Uh,
little Clutch on my shoulder every time I try to make a purchase. Like, would Clutch do this? What would Clutch do?
I mean, I'm honored. I mean, like I feel like I'm yelling at people half the time. I'm
No,
like,
you're
hey,
good, man.
don't
It
do
seems that
that.
way. You're
Like, how
teaching
is
people how
it?
to fish, like, which is an amazing thing. Like, they'll get it and jump on.
Oh yeah, I mean, at least like that. That's definitely the hope. Like, if me yelling at y'all like enough gets it to sink, like I did my job. Dang, I mean, there is sell through. What's the volume? 4.K. I mean, like this, like, see how far that spread is? Like, were you in last lesson, G?
Yeah, that was.
All right, so like, so you see like the bearish divergence. Like
Yeah,
the listings are high, the floor is low, but there is like a flip side to this. Like the floor has maintained itself. Like
that's crazy though.
it's like it took a slight dip here, but it didn't last long. Like that, so that was at 14.4. So that was 1 minute. So then 1 minute it got brought right back up. So there was an extreme paper hand.
One paper hand. So
One paper hand.
is this more of everyone is agreement with the price right now and kind of just waiting on whatever next turn happens?
Like list or not listing, my god, I know that staking is like live. Like I kind of did my homework because I had time. I'm like, okay, I'm not in a rush to mint, like let's figure more things out about these guys. Like they definitely have like a degen vibe, but the team was really cool. Like I hung out in their VC for, god, it felt like a few hours. Like I was just in there just listening to them, and I'm like, man, they seem like genuinely excited and proud of their project. Like that's awesome. Like I
Yeah.
don't see that too often. Like projects don't hop in voice chat like during mint. They're just like quiet because they're like, "Ooh, are we gonna mint out?" Like,
Trying to run away from everything.
yeah. I mean, like you look at all the other mints today, and it was like, nope, not touching that, not touching that. This one I'm interested in.
Hey, sorry about that. Literally, a customer just walked in as soon as you asked me that question.
Dude,
So
of
I looked like in
course.
retail.
I forgot what I asked. Yeah, like you've been in these before, right?
Yeah. I was unfortunately usually there during when I work when I'm driving for my work, and so it's hard to
Mm,
like. I'd rather like watch and listen at the same time so I can get an idea of what's going on. So I
there you
usually just
go.
watch the playbacks, but I was here for the first one.
Cool.
Yes,
I always
sir.
like to ask. I'm like, do people get anything out of this? Like, I hope so. Like,
Stop. We wouldn't be back if we didn't.
I mean, who knows? What if they're like, maybe finally I'll learn something this week. Screw those other videos. Like,
Wow.
you never know. Because I mean, like, my trading style is like completely different than what the NFT market gives. So I'm like, okay, like I know that there's an opportunity to like build on my style in this market. Like, there's no
That's the
Elliott
same kind
wave.
of fundamentals though, so
Yeah, I mean, definitely fundamentals play a huge part in this, but it's still supply and demand. I'm just taking
yeah.
Elliott wave out of the context because I'm like that doesn't really like apply to this as much.
Right, yeah.
I
Too
mean, like,
local.
yeah, it's a very micro market, and like no one's playing with these kinds of metrics in this, but they do play new in effect in the crypto market. I'm like, I remember seeing my portfolio just saying like, "You're up." I'm like, "Let's take a look." Ooh, yeah, we can delete that. That's gone. This is gone. Hmm, nice pop.
So interesting how you can just read charts like this and just start drawing these lines.
Yeah,
How
some
long have
people
you
are like,
been like trading and all that and doing like
um.
professional TA?
So I mean, I've been in the game since like 2014, but I like this type of trading, like like Elliott wave. I got into about like 3 years ago, like
Okay.
just before lockdown, and I've been doing supply and demand for kind of around the same time. So like right around like 3 years is kind of that mark for me.
Did you start in 2014 with crypto or just stocks or like
2014, I was doing like OTCA, sorry, or OTC. So I was doing this is the original degen. I mean, these are stocks that like don't qualify to be on Nasdaq. So
oh
you
the
so
pink
you
slips?
Oh yeah. Well, some of them
The
aren't
penny
even pink.
stock.
Some of them are like gray. Some of them are like skull and crossbone. Like
Oh god.
OTC is the original degen market.
Okay, I love it.
Oh, I mean that this is my background. Like, but I had to learn like what certain market makers were, like how to spot dilution, like how to read financial sheets, like did they increase shares to like dump on shareholders? Like any CEO that's pumping on Twitter is actually a super bad thing because they're trying to unload their bag on you. Like those kinds of things.
The
So
original
like
rugs.
yeah, so like I learned early on like what it meant to get rugged before rugging
Nice.
was like a thing.
I mean, early to the game is better, I suppose.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, OTC, that's where I started. And then I was like, man, like this OTC stuff like it's cool and all, but like volume's kind of drying up, like things are just sitting. Like I need to find something else. And then that's when I found like small caps. I mean, like I have like a whole different set of rules and strategy for like small cap trading. Like I'd only trade stocks that would be like $1 to $10. I would trade in like even amounts. So like if I bought 1,000 shares at like $1, like I knew like my scale outs at the top of my head.
Mm.
I had to program hotkeys. So if I like added in fourths, I would just hit control 1, adding like more like control 2, control 3,
Oh,
control 4. I'm exiting shift X. Like I had to
no,
make
that's smart though.
hotkeys to get in and out. So like I had to sign up for like interactive brokers. I mean, that I did that for like a couple years. Like I almost spent 2 years like in each market.
Wow.
I mean, I've definitely done quite a bit, but options, oof, I love options trading. Like that has a big home for me.
Really? Everyone I've like met who's done options, they're like, don't fucking do options.
They
I'm
don't
like, oh,
understand. They're buying SPY and like it expires today and like they have no fucking idea what they're doing. Like I learned early on, like, okay, there's a degen side to options. I'm not here for that. Like I'm here for a completely different side of it. So let's focus on that.
okay.
Like if I trade SPY, like even if I'm trading SPY, like let's pull it up just until like the room gets filled. Did we crack that? Ooh. So I mean like I use fibs like quite a bit. Like any big charts you see me looking at, like I always have
Oh,
like
sorry.
Fibonacci retracements on here and stuff. I take it a customer came. What is going on, everyone? We're just gonna give it a bit. I'm early. PC locked. Well, let me give you. Sorry, guys. I'm doing like support at the same time.
I believe in you.
How you doing, William? Sorry, Clay. It's a reflex.
Man, just chilling. Just chilling.
Chilling, chilling. How's the little baby?
She's good. She's good. We're gonna have to make another drive tomorrow. So she's been doing pretty well on those. But,
Yeah, I think like almost every time I hear you, you're like, "Yeah, I'm driving, guys."
yeah, the past month's been pretty crazy. So
It's all good, man. We doing what we can. Control what you can. Everything will fall into place. Nice to see you found your way here. A few minutes, guys. I just like to give people a chance to hop in here. I mean, if anyone's got anything, I mean, it's open floor. So, I mean, if y'all want to say what's up, feel free. Unless you just feel cringe hearing yourself talk in a recording, just feel free to type in clutch trades. Oh, come on, buddy. Your mom will be home soon. Just chill. If you guys ever hear like an alien kind of bark, that's just my dog.
it's one cute ass dog.
He's freaking awesome. Your name fits you perfectly, doesn't it? Tucker the little fucker. Oh man. There you go. All right, we'll give it 3 minutes, 5:05. We're gonna kick it off. So I mean, if anyone's got anything that like they may want me to like kind of cover, like when I can fit it in, just feel free to type it in like the Clutch Trades channel, or just feel free to speak up. I'm happy either way. I want y'all to get out what you want out of it.
My guy called his dog an alien. I love it.
Bro, I'm gonna put a recording in later. Like you'll see what I'm talking about. He's like, but I'm like, how did you figure out how to make that noise? Like
He's
that
trying to
makes.
communicate. He's trying to
He
communicate,
is.
man.
He's like, bro, I know you understand me. You guys talk all the time. This is me talking to you. I'm just checking out Spy, seeing what it's been up to. We'll kick it off in a couple minutes. Just feel free to hang out in the meantime. Just ignore what I'm doing. Where the fuck is the other? Oh my god. So, I mean, just to kind of go over a little bit what I'm doing here. Just taking a look at SPY. If y'all don't know what SPY is, it's the S&P 500. This is the baby that kind of runs the entire equities market. And so it plays a pretty pivotal role in what's going on day to day. I mean, even for crypto. Because if you start seeing equities fall, you're typically, oh, hell no. I got to get the squeaker toy away from him. Come on, buddy. Sorry about that. All right. So, yeah, I mean, just to kind of kick it off a little bit before we start, I'm just taking a look at Spy, seeing what she's doing, because believe it or not, it does play a big role in kind of all markets. This is kind of like a leading indicator of like how you can tell like buyer sentiment and things like that. And as you can tell, so each of these candles, each of these candlesticks is on a daily time frame. And whenever we're chopping back and forth like this, meaning, this isn't a smooth trading range. Like this day we shot up, this day we shot down, this day we kind of popped, faded back down. Next day we gapped up dramatically. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot of smooth trading lately. Like there's a lot of gaps on the chart, there's a lot of imbalance. Because back in, you know, before 2022, we traded like this just super beautifully. There was a clear trend, and this is where we're at now. Like whipsaws up and down, so you could tell there's a whole lot of uncertainty in the market. We're actually in a downtrend, but what we're trying to see is where we're going to be establishing some of that footing. Because right now it kind of looks like this is about to like pop. It faded. We're getting a little traction, but there's no real range in these candles. They're almost inside of each other. Like this entire day, we opened down here, closed up here, opened down, so we gapped down, and then we shot back up. And today we just have a small range outside of it. And so these fibs I'm looking at down here are on a macro view. So when I say macro, I mean we're looking at a way bigger picture. So I mean, if you look all the way to the left, I'm drawing the base of my retracement here and the top of it all the way up here. So like the last real measured move. And typically when we're looking at these fib retracements, I can add the rest of these on before we kick it off. All right, so you can kind of see how the market reacts to these. So when we had our first initial fall, we tagged this 38.2%. We had a little bit of a bounce. We gapped down below, and then we shot back up. And then we had this little stutter action before we popped up in the supply and just faded. You can tell us that, like these fibs are like an area of defense. Like bulls are trying to pivot here. We fell through the 50 like a hot knife through butter until we tagged the 61. And so we're kind of watching to see if this demand zone is going to hold up, because the second we tested it, I mean, we launched out of here. And so I always like to take a look at SPY kind of at the beginning of the day, kind of seeing what's going on, because it affects crypto. But this whole jargon is not why we're here. We're going to hop into it. So, welcome. If you guys haven't been here before, welcome. If you guys didn't know, my name's Klutch. I've been a technical analysis trader for the better part of my adult life. Been trading since 2014. I've spent a little time in kind of all various markets. I mean, I started my journey in the OTC market. I've been in the small caps, so I like to trade equities, options, crypto, commodities, futures. If you don't know what those are, I mean, we're probably going to have lessons on those in the future. But almost all my style of trading is going to be dependent on technical analysis. You know what that means? I mean, we were just looking at it. Like this is technical analysis. I look at charts, I look at the history, I see what it does, I see kind of where, opportunities are giving me in the market by looking at the chart. And my goal is to teach you guys. I want you guys to kind of get an idea and a feel for the market and understand it just like I do. My main trading styles that I like to implement is going to be supply and demand and Elliott wave theory. So those are my favorites. This doesn't quite 100% apply to the NFT space because Elliott wave theory is going to be on a much more macro scale, but I have been charting and seeing supply and demand respect it pretty well. So just a quick disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor. Everything we're going over here is going to be for entertainment purposes and just overall education. So anything I can say, it's just for fun. Just know if you guys are getting in the market, I mean, y'all can lose everything. But in order to prevent that, we got rules. So if you guys have been here before, you've heard me say it time and time again. I got 10 rules. I follow these religiously. So rule number one is capital preservation is everything. If you know what that means, it means all the money in your account that you have, you got to preserve and hold on to that like it's your own baby. Because if you lose all that capital, you lost your baby. You guys ever did that egg project when you were in school and you had to take care of an egg? And if you broke the egg, it was over. I mean, this is the same concept. Your goal is not to be adding money to your account consistently. If anything, it's to be building it or taking it out as profits to help pay your bills. Um, in order to preserve your capital, you always need to have a plan. So when I mean have a plan, I mean we went over this in lesson 2, I believe. You want to know what you're getting into, where your exit targets are going to be, where your stop losses are. So you got to have a plan. You can't just jump in willy nilly and hope for the best. Doesn't go well. What helps me kind of reframe my mind and kind of keep those goals in check, I treat trading like a business. You have a job, you know you take it seriously. You know that there's rules and things that you got to follow. Why treat trading any differently? Um, and rule number 4, I use chart history to identify my edge. So that just goes back into I use technical analysis to give myself edge in the market and let me know where's a good entry point, where's a good exit, things like that. And please, for the love of God, only risk what you can afford to lose is rule number 5. I mean, if you guys are betting your rent, your mortgage, things like that, I mean, it's just not a good spot to be. You're going to be trading very emotionally if you're trading more than what you can afford to lose. What really helped me early on was I only traded what I could lose every time, and it let me trade logically versus emotionally. And that leads us into rule number 6: trade on facts, not emotion. When you're looking at things logically, like trying to understand the what and the why, like why am I getting into this? Where would be a good exit point? You're trading logically. You're not trading with emotion, and that's going to give you so much edge. Be disciplined. I mean, a lot of it is a little bit repetitive, but if you're disciplined in your trading, you're following your rules. You could be right only 50% of the time, but if your risk reward ratio is 2 to 1, meaning, oh, and you guys still, okay, never mind, we're good. Sorry, had a little technical difficulty. So be disciplined in your trading. That's going to give you guys all of the edge in the world. You're going to figure out, what's working for you, what's not. But if you're using a 2 to 1 risk reward ratio, you could be wrong 50% of the time or right 50% of the time, and you're still going to be profitable. And that's, we're going to go into learn proper sizing. We went over that in lesson 2. Number 9, know when you should take a step back. So if you're getting waxed constantly, G, your mic muted. Beautiful. So know when to take a step back. I mean, I've been seeing this like a bit in alpha chat. So I mean, don't mint to mint. Like if you're minting, we're gonna have a plan. You're gonna know what that plan is because that's what we're gonna be going over today. So if you find yourself just on a hot losing streak, like every trade you've taken, every investment you've been getting into lately is just not working out for you, it's probably a good time to take a step back and reassess what you're doing wrong and try to pick apart what you're doing right as well. And you guys hear me say this time and time again. Market's always right. So just know, like, you can't blame the market. You can't be like, oh, I got in this, it should have mooned, or gosh, of course, everything I get in just falls apart when I get into it. The market's always right. So we got to be thinking logically versus emotionally. And that's what we're going to be diving into today. Today's agenda, we went over the intro, we reviewed the disclaimer, went over the trading rules, but today we're going over rules and things to pay attention to during mints. So I see some of y'all's faces, so some of you guys were in this today. We're going to be jumping into it, but I'm going to send a quick reminder to everybody in Alpha Chat just so they're still hanging around. So just give me one sec. Bear with me. All right, sweet. Normally I got things, typed up for this. I mean, if you guys have been here before, I got all this stuff going on, but we changed it last minute. I had a work call, didn't get to type it out. But let's go over minting. So for example, I mean, today we had a few mints going on. We were paying attention to a few. I mean, we were looking at what Glorious Giraffe. We were looking at, someone remind me of the other one. There was another mint we were going over today.
Crippin' Tigers.
Trip God. Trippin' Tigers. I think it's Nikomata was another one, and Infected Mob was the other one. So the reason why we didn't take Trippin' Tigers, we didn't take any of those other mints, is simply a lack of demand. So I don't know if you guys have done this before, where you just see that, oh my gosh, there's a mint happening, and you just blindly mint, and then you find yourself just immediately holding a bag. I mean, oh, that's my dog. All right, he ain't coming back in here. So we got to have rules when we're looking for mints. So I mean, some big rules that I like to pay attention to when I'm minting. I mean, we kind of went over a little bit of this today in the alpha chat, but it kind of helps to hear things verbally. So one of the biggest things I like to look for is I want to see what the energy in the Discord's looking like, leading up to mint, or even during it if they leave the chat open. And so, I mean, pretty much every other mint closed their chat today. There was no VC, there was nothing for that except for one. But we'll go over the other ones. So, Glorious Giraffe, I mean, traffic looked absolutely dead. Okay, you can go screw yourself. Chat didn't look super active. I saw people trying to put up clown emojis like on announcements and things like that, and the moderators were like actively trying to take it down. So there was already big negative sentiment going on in the chat between people who are holders or people who've just been there for a while, or even new people. But the sentiment was bearish, so it was kind of obvious. The mint was not doing well. Like, let's see if we can actually pull it up. Give me one sec, because I wouldn't be surprised if some of these mints are still going on. Gotta log in, do all that stuff. Give me a sec. All right, sick. So this is still going on. It's still an ongoing mint. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure their supply was at like 4,444, so that were like 4,444. The public mint was 1.5. It was meant to be 2. So this project, they cut their mint price and they cut their supply, and we're still not selling out. So this is a giant red flag. So even if you have a whitelist and you're like, God, I worked so hard for it, like I either grinded for it, I entered a raffle. I mean, don't mint just to mint. You have to pay attention to these metrics. So I mean, their mint is still going on. So there is still about 50% of the remaining supply still available to come into the market. So what I mean is this we're going to call OS. This is their outstanding supply. And this is going to be SS. This is their share structure. So when we have a share structure that got cut, where there's going to be less holders available to participate in the market, but the OS is the outstanding supply. So this is what is currently outstanding. This is what's available to be bought, trade, solded, make offers on, all of that stuff. There's still a 50% remaining supply that can potentially come into the market and dilute the listing price. And if you guys were here during our first lesson, you know that supply and demand is the basic foundation of all of my trading and everything that comes in between. So we're going to take a look at the sentiment really quick. So when I look at a mint, I want to take a look at what's going on in the mint. I want to take a look at what's going on in the Discord. But if we're lucky, they're going to be also posting their NFTs live to be bought, sold, traded. So I mean, this was down in the 80s earlier. So I mean, we're at 1.329 right now, but the mint price is 1.5. So this is where we have a huge influx. Meaning, why the hell would I be minting if I can buy something on the secondary for cheaper? I mean, those are questions you need to be asking yourself when you're looking at live mints or when you're contemplating, utilizing your whitelist that you may or may not have worked so hard for. So this is a giant no for me, meaning that there wasn't a whole lot of demand. There was 4,444 NFTs able to be minted. They cut that down 75%, and they still couldn't sell out. I'm not trying to knock, Glorious Giraffe, but I mean, they kind of brought it on themselves. So sorry, if anyone's in this project, but another red flag for me is, escrow 0 days, meaning as soon as the mint is done, this project is taking their money. And that to me, it can draw some flags because I mean, you want a project that's going to be well established that has, a financial backing before even going into the mint. I mean, that's going to give you a lot of confidence as a holder and an investor, knowing that, hey, my guys don't even need this money for, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days. But a 0 day escrow just means that they need this money and they need it now, and they're planning on everything being paid to their team or whatever their utilization or tokenomics or whatever their white paper needed. They needed this funding for it, or it could be a red flag as a cash grab. Not saying that they are, but I mean, when I see a 0 day escrow, it's a yellow flag for me. Like, why do you need the money immediately? A good project doesn't need the money immediately. You've got funding, you've got people backing you from the beginning. There's those little things to pay attention to. I think the same thing happened with Trippin' Tigers. Let me pull up theirs and see if it's still going on. And yeah, if projects are still minting like hours and hours after the fact, it's also not a great indication. I mean, that's showing you that there's no real willing demand for people to be buying this NFT. And when you are at that point, this is even worse. I mean, they've only minted, my gosh, 458 out of a total supply of 4,444. So I mean, there's not a real need for people to mint this. And you got to ask yourself why. We've got a 0 day escrow. It's Trippin' Tigers. So, I mean, it's double derivative. I mean, they're being derivative of Trippin' Tigers, sorry, of Trippin' Ape Tribe. They're being derivative of Yeah Tigers. So they're hopping on a bandwagon. They got a 0 day escrow. They need this money for whatever they're planning on implementing. So, I mean, both of these projects had giant red flags. So in the chat, in the alpha chat, we were saying no. Like, I'm not interested, don't mint. Like, you need certain things to take place first before you can mint. And their chats are closed, so people can't be bashing or trying to scam people by posting fake mints, but little things like that. So I mean, there's a lot of red flags with these. But what was really good about Infected Mob is, I don't know if you guys were in there, but I hopped in their Discord because I like to check things out. I want to see what the sentiment is. I want to see if people are excited leading up to the mint. The dev team, they were doing a great job promoting it. They were on Twitter nonstop, going for organic engagement, encouraging all of their holders to, engage with their stuff. So they're doing call to action, they're advertising, they're marketing, they're trying to push everything they can to get attention on their project. Um, and on top of that, they were holding VC. I mean, the team was actively in a voice chat. They were talking. Other holders couldn't participate in the conversations and stuff, but they were trying to drive hype. And when you see people kind of putting themselves on the front line like that, like being open and exposed in a chat of like hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, just talking, it is, it's really encouraging. They're trying everything they can to drum up excitement, drum up hype during a bear market. I mean, they had a 7,700 and, you know what I'm saying, 7777 supply, and they minted out. They didn't cut their supply. They didn't cut their mint price. They just stood the ground and it minted out organically, just through, attention and everything like that. And so leading up to it, we weren't so sure. So this is a chart of kind of where we're at on the given mint. So as soon as they minted, there was 3 stages to the mint. I don't think we could pull it up. I don't think that info is still going to be there.
So the stages were two 2 p.m. CST was OG, and that was for 30 minutes. Then whitelist was for an hour. I really feel like if they'd have made whitelist 30 minutes, it'd have been a lot better. The only thing we've seen in the past is whenever people choose to buy whitelist, Solana tends to lag down. So that's really hard to gauge. But that hour just let people think about it too much.
Faster. Like if there's an open wound or disgruntlement, they had a while to think about it and marinate.
Yep, which
But
I mean didn't get to 50%, even though it was over allocated. So that extra
yeah,
30 minutes of them marinating on the fact that it hadn't hit 50% yet made people a little bearish. But holding the floor price was good. That was actually pretty crazy to see.
that was amazing. I mean, we can look at this. So, I mean, the green line is the floor, the blue line is the listings. So, this was the first phase. This is from, so if we look at the time, it's from 12:10 my time to 12:11. All the way over here is until 12:27. So, I don't know if you want to look at the bottom and just see the timestamp. William hinted at it perfectly. The first stage of the mint was 30 minutes. It was mainly the team. It was OG whitelisting, and you had to use Robo token to mint it. So it wasn't even Solana. Like they didn't even use Sol to mint it. They used Robo to mint it.
So for that part of it, you could
Mhm.
also they put something out 5 days earlier that if you got one of their OG collections, they would airdrop you 777 Robo to mint for free. And I don't
Dang.
guess too much of that, but yeah.
So I mean that's it's a pretty unique way of minting. So there was incredibly low supply. So there's only 12 listings available at the time. Floor hit a high of 3.9. All's good. And then the whitelist opened. And the floor price fell before it found some footing around 1.95 or around 160 listings. And so if you guys remember, green is the floor, blue is listings. So we had a bearish divergence right here, just about 3 hours into their mint. So we had that bearish divergence, but even though the bearish divergence happened, look at the floor. I mean, the floor maintained itself besides this 1 minute. So from, in UTC time, 14.40 to 14.41, there was one paper hand who just said, screw it, I'm selling at 1.33. No idea why. It's not a good strategy. So even though that one blimp happened, we continued. I mean, we're at 1.6. I mean, they're maintaining their floor. Yes, it's below mint. Listings are still on the rise, but even though the listings were on the rise, the floor price maintained itself. So you can kind of dissect just by looking at this. You're like, okay, there's steady demand. It's not crazy demand. It's not significant, but it's not insignificant either. So people aren't letting the floor dip below a certain price. That's a little bit of good confidence. It's good faith that people are, willing to step in and participate in the secondary, even though if they don't want to mint. So some of the rules I like to have when I'm minting is I want to see stability in the floor price, or I want to see the floor price incredibly high. So if you guys were in Alpha Chat, you kind of remember some of those things I was reiterating. So we'll just kind of go down the list. Typically, my perfect world scenario for a mint, I'm whitelisted. I'm going to be minting when we're around anywhere between 60 to 70% sell through of the mint. And in a perfect world, I can immediately, sell a couple of my listings on the secondary market immediately for a profit. I mean, we have to keep in mind that there's, artist royalties, and if you're going on Emmy, there's going to be Emmy fees. So I mean, if the artist fees are 8, Emmy's fee is 2%, that's 10%. So if you were to mint at 1 and you sold at 1.2, that was supposed to be a 20% gain is actually only going to be 10% because you got to account for the fees. So you got to do a little bit of math when you're getting in a mint and figuring out, where your desired sell price can be. So I did mint one infected mob. I wanted a couple, but I went for the one just because of one, the stability. The floor price looked fine. I'm actually kind of excited to see what they do with it. But I minted around 80% mint, so there was 80% sell through. Yes, you can see that there's listings. The listings were rising, but the floor price maintained its stability incredibly well, even during the sell through. So I knew there was demand. It wasn't significant. It wasn't my perfect world scenario, but I felt comfortable minting it just because of those reasons. They sold through their mint. They didn't cut their supply. They didn't lower their mint price, and they sold through organically through hype. It wasn't like a call to action, like they were trying to get influencers involved and things like that. I mean, things just happen naturally. And if you look at the artwork, I mean, they put some time into their artwork. So let's just pull it up. That's another good indication too, is the artwork. Um, if no one puts any effort into the artwork, how the hell can you expect the team to put any effort into completing items on their roadmap? So I mean, when we look at the artwork, I mean, they put some time into it. Like this isn't easy art to do. Like it's not something that someone could drum up really quick. I mean, it took time, and there was 7,000 plus pieces that they had to do this for. So paying attention to the detail of their art, how does it look? How are people reacting to it? I mean, if you look on Twitter while people are minting, like people were pumped to show their PFPs. Like profiles were changing. You can kind of use inspect to help with that too. If you don't have inspect, we have it posted in our links, but it's a good way to kind of gauge, what's going on. So if you want to kind of take a look, so infected mob, so they locked, so they gotta be, whatever. That just ruined everything.
They
Anyway,
got to have holders vote on it for it to unlock.
I saw it. They're like 22 shy. It is what it
Yeah,
is. But the artwork's sexy. I mean, I'm a big fan of it. It's different. It's not a derivative animal. It's not a derivative name. It's not glorious giraffe. Sorry for bashing, but it's not trippin' tiger where they're trying to do a double derivative off two projects. I mean, one of them did awful and the other one did great. So people are either going to piggyback or people are going to be original. And I like to pay attention to the projects that are being original and they care how they're being presented. The team was in voice chat. The artwork looked great. So, I mean, it had a good recipe for success. And we're in a bear market. So you have to take that into consideration. Like, how strong is the willingness for demand for people to be minting things while, we're in a bear market? So they checked a lot of boxes for me. It wasn't my perfect world scenario. I had a whitelist and I sat on it. I didn't even mint during the whitelist. I know some of you guys did, and that's 100% fine. I just like to wait for things until they hit, my perfect little homeostasis. So I waited until we were about 80% sell through because the reason why I've done this before. I've minted and I've been stuck holding a bag and it's just an awful feeling. So I went back to my trading rules. I'm like, okay, NFT has to be, whether it's, sorry, NFTs need to be traded the same way that I treat my rules in trading. So I had to make rules. Many of you guys may not know, but I'm still relatively new to the NFT space. I've been in here a month. Like I think Cardboard Citizens was actually the first project I minted and held for a prolonged period of time. So I've had to accelerate my learning so that I can better teach you guys. And so I've had to watch a lot of mints and I've found the sweet spots. So I mean, if you guys are gonna set your own limitations on yourself. If you want to get better at something, take the time and just study. I mean, there's Jay, mute your mic. Perfect, I'll take it. um, so I mean, you want to see, and so the reason why, let's touch base and edify on why I wait for sell through. I want to see that available supply be shrunken to minimize the potential damage that a giant, listing wave could cause. And that's going to come from supply. So, I mean, if we're at 30% sell through of the mint, sorry, I had to mute. So if we're at 30% sell through of the mint, there's still 70% remaining supply that can come in and dilute the market. And if we've learned anything from like those first few lessons we had, supply and demand to me is everything. So if there's 70% supply that hasn't even hit the market yet and we're not minting through, there's not demand to buy on the secondary, there's red flags. So you need to pay attention to those things. And so minting and the mint through percentage is a big factor for me. And that's why I wait for 70, 60, 80%. Like I need confidence. I need to know that a giant amount of supply can't just hit the market, dilute, and just crush the floor price. So when we're looking at on this, let's refresh it because now we've got some new data coming in. I want to take a look and kind of see what's happening. So, here we had our bearish divergence. You can kind of see like the tweets here. Like you could see like when the team actually put out tweets. So there's a few metrics that you can take into effect while looking at Project Dolphin. So I mean, at one particular mint, this was probably when they sold out. It's when the floor price got nice and high. They tweeted again. Don't know exactly what it was, but I mean, we can always go back and see what's going on their Twitter. But floor price is 2.13, mint was 1.77. So if you minted, I mean, you're on the green. you could sell immediately and make a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of profit. But me personally, I'm holding. I bought it because I want to see what the team does. I want to support them. You can also use some of these great indicators on here. I mean, you can see how high the willingness was to buy for a listing. And while it may not seem significant, it's incredibly significant. And I'll tell you why. So during mint, people were willing to spend freaking 24.9 soul to get a rare infected mob. So there is willingness to buy a high rarity in this market. So green is sales, yellow is listings. So we want to look for the green when we're in a minting phase. And so if you see a willingness to buy rarity at an incredibly high, marginal spread, if mint was 1.77 and someone's willing to pay 24 freaking soul, almost 25 to buy a rare one, that's showing a big significance of demand. It could have been a developer, it could have been a team lead, who knows. Just the fact that someone is willing to spend that kind of capital on a PFP is bullish. And when we're looking at this, you can see exactly how many are listed between a given price range. So from 2 sol to 4 sol, we have 768 listings to get through. It's a pretty significant number. But if we blast through that number, look how far the apple falls. I mean, the spread gets a lot wider, the available listings get a lot lower. So you know that people who are listing, they're not listing for high. People are listing low and they're trying to get their money and they're trying to get out. So it's not a great tail sign, but you know exactly what supply level we have to hit through. And then you know where you can list your items. So if you're trying to think like, oh, I minted at 1.77, I'm going to list it at 5. Well, or even if you listed at 3, people have to sift through 768 other listings to figure out where your listing is at. Sure, you could play the game of, delisting and listing it, delisting and listing it, trying to stay at the top of recently listed. But realistically, you need to pay attention to these numbers when you're listing because it's going to give you reasonable price targets to expect so that you don't list high and you're sit holding a bag when you could have sold it at a lower price point and collected your profit. I mean, these are metrics and things that I pay attention to when I'm minting or even when I'm watching a mint. This is a great one as well. I mean, it's showing you that 70% of the NFTs that were purchased have been listed at one point. This is showing you that 11% of the NFTs that have been listed have been canceled. 19% have been bought. So these are metrics of telling you where's the real willingness to supply, where's the real willingness to demand. And right now, the supply is high. 70% of people are willing to let go of their PFP and be done with it. But 20% of the people wanted to buy it on the secondary and they were happy to. 11%, yeah, they changed their mind. Um, so these are certain factors I like to pay attention to. We're just going to refresh again just to get some new data because I like to see where it's at. So we're at 1.99. I mean, I'm not expecting any fireworks with this. You can see that the marginal spread between the floor and the listings has a pretty big bearish divergence. This was your indication here that there was a bearish divergence, so you know what to expect. If you want this to pop, our listings need to be, cut in half pretty much. Like if we have 743 listings on a 7,000 supply, that's 10% listing. You'll figure out that the Goldilocks zone with listings compared to supply is 10% and below. Those are when the supply shocks happen. So if you see mints happening and we're 10% below what's available in the outstanding shares, so OS, we went over that. That's going to give you also a big vote of confidence. When we were looking at those other projects, Trippin' Tigers, Glorious Giraffes, their listings were 20% of what was available in the outstanding supply. So if there was 500 listed and we're 20% of that, that's not a good vote of confidence. Like, there's no real willing buyers to lessen that amount to give people an incentive to mint. And so, those are big things to pay attention to when we're minting. So, we'll run down the rules just bullet point format. I like to wait for 70 to 80% mint sell through because I want to limit the risk of supply. I want to see the team being active. I want to see, good quality art. I don't want to see some derivative stuff. I don't want to see things that were half-assed or cut corners. Denex does a really good job of kind of analyzing the art. I mean, there's a few projects that we were looking at and he spotted errors. Like, they didn't line up the hat correctly. They didn't fill in paint in a certain section. So it shows a certain attention to detail and willingness to, put time and care about the product. I don't really pay attention to the roadmaps. I don't pay attention to the white paper nearly as much as I pay attention to how the team's presenting themselves. That does go a big way. You can look in the white paper and, sorry, I probably shouldn't have voiced that. It is important to know what the project's goal is. It's important to know what they're looking for and what they're looking to achieve, but it's not the first thing I look for because it's easy to check off boxes early on just by looking at those certain details. Um, so, with infected mob, with the reasoning of, wanting to get into this one specifically is, they have staking live. So meaning the team actually put time into getting things done. They have to build a blockchain for their token and make it easily, accessible. People were talking in chat, while the minting was going on, exactly how much mob they were earning while the minting was still going on. The staking was available literally the second it launched. So they didn't need all of the funds to, put that into action because there's legal processes that have to happen first. So that's a telltale sign that the teams invested their own money into making their roadmap and their vision be successful and have it be, kicked off from the start. So there's those little things that you can pay attention to prior to mint. Um, I know we didn't go bullet point. I squirreled. My bad. So I want to pay attention to the details. I want to pay attention to what the team's doing. I want to pay attention to, the environment in the chat. Is it heavily botted? I mean, yeah, there's always going to be heavily botted stuff. Like that's just what it takes to get listed on ME these days. Like you have to be over a certain amount of followers. You have to have a certain number of people in your Discord. So botting just comes with the game. But are they using those bots for numbers or are they using them to, participate or be active in their chat? So there's some telltale signs. With infected, I mean, it was not botted as nearly as bad as some of the other ones. So they were going for organic engagement. They were in VC. So I mean, it checked a lot of boxes for me. Um, I know we went over quite a bit, but does anyone like have any questions or they want me to like reiterate anything? You
I
can
would
tell
really
me.
just like to point out that the market we're in is so much different than it was
Oh
just a
yeah,
couple months ago.
even just a
So
month.
talking about watching the mint. So I don't know if anyone was around for like Mouse in the House. That was just a couple months ago.
Oh yeah,
The
I've
majority
I've
of
taken it.
whitelisted people could not mint. So whenever I saw that there was an over allocation of whitelist spots and everyone could mint three a couple months ago, you trying to watch it go to 80%. If you watched it go to 70%, you would not be able to get a mint in. And it's going to change. It changed
Hmm.
as fast as it has. I know for me, I minted fast and then I regretted it. But
Like, do you know like what percentage of the mint it was at when you minted?
it was at 35.
Okay.
And it hit 35 really fast. And then it just stopped.
Stopped.
Or it was, yeah, it actually stopped at 34. I think I might have minted at like 28 or 30. But yeah. So definitely watch the mint these days.
100%. I think today it's more imperative than ever, like just like you said, because there's so many projects that mint and then they just stall. I mean, Infected Mob stalled. I mean, it had a nice little run to 30 and then it just stalled. And that was, during the whitelist phase. And then when it went public, we bumped up to 40, we bumped up to 50, but it took time. So there wasn't a crazy amount of demand for this. And then, it's going to reflect in the floor price. The good news is it's above mint. So I mean that's a positive thing to highlight. But it's not it. It's impressive to mint out in this market without taking shortcuts, without cutting your supply, without cutting the mint. Um, Social sentiment will tell you if it's a buy or not. Like it absolutely will. So when you're looking at, these ones, I mean, these people got out for a steal. They doubled their profit immediately and they could have gotten a free mint immediately afterwards. And like kind of like William said, some of them were, allocated OG mint, so they got a free NFT. So they made a clean three soul return and were able to buy another one if they wanted to. I mean, my ideal perfect strategy for a mint, this is perfect world scenario. This isn't going to happen every day in this market. It's just not. but a lot of the times they're going to over allocate. Meaning, if there's a 7,000 supply and there's 8,000 available whitelist or 9,000 available whitelists, the team's uncertain and they want to make sure they get as many allocated white spots out in hopes that their project is going to mint out before it hits public market. That is going to be the perfect storm. Is if it mints out in whitelist, that's going to show significant demand. I mean, it's absolutely significant to mint out in whitelist and not have it go public. Massive accomplishment. Um, and so that's one thing I like to look for. So if I don't get it, it happens. But in a perfect world, I would like to mint one, two, or three. Preferably, I would like to mint three. One of the reasons why is, let's just do even numbers here. Let's just say the mint is one soul. I would ideally, if I'm buying three, I am now three soul capital deep into this investment or deep into this trade. I would ideally like to flip one or two of them to obtain three soul back, to have it back in my capital, because I'm preserving my capital, I'm keeping my risk in check, and I'm able to write a mint for free. In a perfect world, I could buy three, sell one, and be already protecting my capital, and I have my entire investment back. So those are things to also pay attention to, prep for, plan for, and execute when you're minting. But it has to be in perfect harmony. So you need demand. That supply cannot be flooding the market and just crushing the floor price. So for this one in specific, I just minted one versus minting three because I wanted to keep my risk in check. I wasn't willing to be 5+ sold deep into this with the risk of maybe exiting and only getting three sold back. It's not a good strategy. It's not a winning one. But I wanted to be part of the community because I liked what the team was doing and I want to see how they grow. So I at least got one. And that's, keeping your risk in check. So that's a great way to keep your risk in check, is not over allocating your capital to a what if maybe scenario. Um, and another good rule, sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. Where was it? I know I said them like 100 times in the alpha chat. So you want to pay attention to the mint sell through. You want to pay attention to the demand. You want to make sure you're not over allocating your capital, and you want to make sure if you're buying to hold, none of this really matters, but you definitely want to make sure it's selling through before you mint, because the last thing you want is to be stuck holding a mint that doesn't sell through. That's not fantastic. That means that project is essentially dead. If they couldn't mint out, ME returns all the money to the holders and basically kills the project. So that is incredibly negative. So if your goal is to just mint to hold because you like the project, you like the utility, none of those rules about exiting particularly matter. But if you're looking to mint to take advantage of a short-term capital gain, you need to make sure that you're paying attention to, what the royalties are, what ME's fee is. ME's fee is 2%. So whatever the royalties are, you got to add that 2% onto it, and you got to do a little math. So if I got in at one soul for the mint and I have three, my investment is three soul. I need to make sure that I am at least listing one of them, not just at three. I have to list it at 3.3 to make sure I'm compensating for that 10% fee and artist royalty that's going to be coming out of it. So you got to do a little math sometimes to figure out exactly, where your exit point is to make sure you're getting back all of your capital that you went into it. Does anyone have any questions on that or anything you want me to go over again? Perfect. So I mean, those are some things to pay attention to, some tips, some best practices when it's coming to minting. It's kind of all I have for it, but we have about 14 minutes left. So we're going to dive into just a little bit on what's going on with the broader market. So if you didn't know, this is Bitcoin. This is on a daily time frame. If you never know what time frame I'm in, just look in the top right hand corner. It's going to say 1 day. It's going to say D. It says 4. It's 4 hours. Just pay attention to those things so you understand exactly what kind of view I'm looking at. So when we're looking at Bitcoin, we completed our Elliott wave structure, all the way back here. This was that first initial big boom that we had. Bitcoin hit, 14K, hit all the headlines. And then we fell into a bear market from 2019 all the way until about 2020. It's about a year-long bear market. But we had a beautiful, almost, it got cut a little short, April 14th was the peak of wave 3. Oh my God, hold on. Control Z. We hit our peak, like we hit a giant macro wave 3. And if you don't know anything about Elliott wave, just know that wave 1 is going to be the shortest wave. Wave 2 is going to be your initial pullback. So this is like where you're really looking, if we start getting a nice boom, you want to make sure that we break the high of wave 1. Because if we break wave 1, we're going into a wave 3. And if you look here, I'm just going to do this up really quick. So if you look at, let's take a look at this really quick. So I'm just going to slap on a horizontal line here so that we know the price point. So if you just played a giant macro game on Bitcoin, let's get this aligned so we're 100% accurate. You could have let this wave 1 happen, understood what's happening in wave 2, but you see when we broke the high of wave 1, we just rallied and we rallied and we rallied. Wave 3s are the most explosive, violent waves in all of Elliott wave. And so just to give you an idea on what your return on investment could have been, what the F is it? Beautiful. So we're going to look at this percentage tool. So if we broke the high, we climbed a beautiful 370%. Obviously, it's this perfect world. We're buying the perfect entry and selling at the perfect top. Doesn't always happen. But this is just so you can understand the power of Elliott wave and understand your risk and reward. If we were to use this as our profit target, and if we were to use this as our stop loss, pretty big stop loss, we wouldn't be doing that. But if you're risking 75%, God, this would never happen, but to potentially gain 370%. This is more than a 2-to-1 risk reward scenario, but my gosh. Obviously, our stop wouldn't be here, but I'm just giving you a worst case scenario because wave 3 can never go. Here. Wave 3 can never dip below wave 2, and it can't go below the 0 point either. There's just rules to this. But here we had, kind of an idea that we were about to rally. And the reason why, we never broke below wave 4 on our macro wave 3. So you have to have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 count to complete a macro wave. And when we're in a bear market, we're looking at A down, B up, and C down to complete a corrective wave. Impulse waves are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and corrective waves, you guessed it, are going to be A, B, and C down. Beautiful chart, I know. There's definitely different subcounts. You can see there's an A, B, C, D here, all that fun stuff. But in order to confirm that our bull run was over, we needed to break the high of wave 3, and we did. It wasn't pretty, but we broke it, and we did. So you can see that in my count, I'm in a corrective wave now. So we've had our A move, we had our B, and we're looking to finish C. And if you guys were here earlier, you know that I use Fibonacci retracements to figure out and dictate where those moves are going to happen. And so when we broke 50%, I knew that we were going to be tagging 60%. When I mean by 60%, I mean 61.8% to be specific, which is the golden ratio when we're talking about Fibonacci. And so when we first tested this, we were wicking back above. So this can only stay valid if we close above it. We can wick below, but if we close below it, the count is invalid. For me, when we wicked below and closed down here, I knew that this was going to be a dead cat bounce, meaning this was going to be a small relief rally before we continued our fade. And you could have got a great short entry just by looking at the most recent measured move, which would be from the top here to the down here. So I'd draw it going all the way down, and we never cleared 50%. So my bear bull pivot is actually all the way up here at 32,677 to confirm we're back in a bull market for Bitcoin. We could be doing it around here, but I'm not going to be incredibly confident until we break this level. That's just going to be a confirmed we are in a bull market. We're going to be raging. Yeah, there's a lot of wiggle room before that. And I know that if, some people are like, you're leaving so much on the table. I'm like, yeah, but percentage gains are percentage gains. Ideally, we could break 28,651 is also another confirmation. because people who thought we were going to rally here, well, we had a fake relief rally and we just washed out completely. So if you were buying here at this retracement thinking that, hey, we hit 61, it's over, and you had that short little high of writing a 10, 11, 12% gain and just let it slip, well, we are down at the low 38% from that zone. So it's a big loss to take for this is a a 1 to 3 ratio, meaning you gave up a 1% and took a 3% loss. So there's these little things that I like to pay attention to. And so when we're thinking about the macro view of where we could potentially pivot on Bitcoin, I'm paying attention to the Fibonacci retracements. And so 17,992 was my 78.6% retracement. And in case you guys are like, what the hell are these retracements? How did he get them? I'm looking all the way to the right and I'm utilizing the bottom of wave 2 to measure. I have to click back on this to show my little dot at the top of wave 5, because that is the giant macro move, a giant measurement from one bottom pivot to the next. The 0 point, I don't really want to pay attention to it because it's not a leading indicator for me. I like to go off of what was the measurement from 2 to 5. That is going to be a good measurement on the Fibonacci scale to figure out where we're lining up. And you could do 2 Fibonacci retracements. You can line it up from point 0, or you can line it up at wave 2, and you can just see how we react. And the reason why I went from wave 2 was just specifically how we were reacting to the fibs when we were coming down. And that's why I scratched using the 0 point and went for wave 2, because that's what it is respecting. And so for Bitcoin, steering back, um, we could say that we're going to be in an impulse wave potentially. You break 23,278. Reason why? It was the high of the most recent measured move. And if we know anything about corrective waves, they don't break the high. So if we're dropping down here and this is A, this is B, and this is C, right now we're in wave C. So if wave B is already confirmed, wave C can't go above B. It doesn't work that way. So wave B would be our pivot of knowing if we're in a bear or bull market. So since we have our B, C is going to be all the way down here just based on the Fibonacci retracements. We could be here, but I got to take into account what's going on with the S&P and stuff like that, because if SPY starts to tank, crypto is going to take a much bigger hit because it is so speculative. Meaning it's a still new emerging market. It's in its infancy stages. It's still brand new. Yes, we went all the way to like 60,000 for our highs, we went all the way up to 69, almost 70,000. So it may seem ludicrous to say that this is still a market in its infancy stages, but it's true. It's brand new still. People are still trying to wrap their mind around it. So it's a young market. And so we're setting ourselves up to take advantage of this market, meaning we are going to be paying close attention to how we respect this fib here. And if we break below this pivot low, kind of rhymes, we're going to be paying attention to this mark right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it here. I'm adding a price alert. I want to know if Bitcoin ever comes near or tags this level again, because if we break it and we are flushing all the way down to this fib, we don't have to hit it exactly. And that's why I throw some supply and demand in here, because this is the imbalance before we completely took off. And this was a secondary imbalance, meaning price was in agreement before demand exceeded supply and we rocketed. We did the same thing here. It wasn't as big, it wasn't as grand because it was a wave 1 and we're comparing it to like a wave 3. So that's how you can also use supply and demand to kind of help you, is by knowing Elliott wave. Obviously this is bigger picture stuff, and you guys can just it's kind of like what we're doing at Cardboard. You can do nothing and just wait for me to tell you to do something, or you can level up your understanding of the macro markets and figure out how they move to take advantage of it and put yourself in a better space to understand where you're putting your money and why you're putting it in those places. So yeah, the broader market of Bitcoin, this is a very important level to pay attention to. I'm expecting some chop here, some consolidation, because price is going to be in agreement because, like I said, we hit a high of 69,000 and we're trading at 19,000 now. We took a 78% haircut So there's going to be some people who think that this is a great spot to grab. But we're still a very highly leveraged market right now, meaning people are borrowing money to buy more. Those margins, or sorry, those leveraged orders, they have margins. You can't go past a certain point until you get liquidated. And when you get liquidated, this is what happens to crypto. They're just liquidating and putting stop orders in and liquidating people like crazy because the bank needs to protect themselves and make sure that they're going to get paid for lending you that money. And there's definitely tools you can look at and kind of figure things out. I don't know if I have any saved on here. Don't. It's on my other computer. But there's wallet trackers, there's like liquidations that you can take a look at. I'll actually put together a little education thread in Clutch Trades and just give you all of my websites that I kind of use when I'm taking a look at, crypto and kind of what's going on. But last I looked, we were still highly over leveraged here because people were borrowing money, thinking it's a great spot to buy Bitcoin. Now, put yourself in big bank shoes. And this is how we're going to separate ourselves from retail. If you were a big bank and you knew that your customers, this sounds awful, but the big money is evil, so you have to remember that they don't have a soul. If you knew that the majority of your customer base was highly over leveraged and you had access to that information and you knew that you could capitalize on it and take advantage of it to increase your net worth, they do. And so they look at the same stuff that I do. I mean, they have, technical analysis people that have been in the game for longer than I've been alive and understand this better than I do and know how to take advantage of it better than you and I do. And so you better believe that they're in it for themselves. And so if we break this level, you can expect some massive capulation and just people getting liquidated all the way down to this ratio down here. So what I'm saying is Bitcoin's not a buy right now. It's a speculative buy because we um, haven't broken any of our confirmations. We're not confirmed in a bull market yet, and we're not confirmed that the bear market's over. So when we're in that kind of situation, you can do one of two things. You can sit on your hands, study, figure out which coins and projects speak to you, or you can dollar cost average in incredibly slow. But you still need to know your risk. I mean, I think my own sister was dollar cost averaging up here. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like dollar cost averaging into a bull market? Like you need to wait for a bear market. Like you're averaging up. That doesn't make any sense. But some people have different methods on how they invest. I'm only going to give my 2 cents. But personally, I like to lower my average and not raise my average. So if I'm DCAing into something, I like to DCA on the way down and not DCA on the way up. Because I want to, again, lower my average. I don't want to raise it. But in order to kind of get in a better spot, I mean, I like to wait for the A and B to be confirmed, and then into wave C, you can kind of start your DCA process. It's totally up to you. Me personally, I'm about 30% into crypto right now, so I'm not heavily overweighted. And I know that when we break this level, I can start DCAing a little bit more aggressively because I know we're going to be hitting a bottom soon and we're going to have a giant relief rally. So there's definitely a few ways to kind of look at it, but I mean, that's just kind of my opinion on what's going on with crypto. That's my little TCA, if you will, on Bitcoin. I do have a dinner I have to be running to. We had our hour, but does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, or want me to reiterate anything before we conclude today? Nobody? Oh, come on.
What's for dinner?
Well, I'm gonna be going to a brewery and they
Nice.
have awesome bar food. So my dinner is beer and probably a burger.
Lovely.
I mean, it's the things we gotta do to, make it through the 9 to 5. One day I'll be full blown Web3 and y'all are gonna get completely sick of me. But for now, I got that IRL job, and that IRL job causes a lot of stress. So your boy loves to sip some beer, eat some good food, be happy about my day. So I'm not going to bed like fuck. I'm so stressed about tomorrow.
Thank you again, Clutch.
Oh, it's my pleasure, you guys. I mean, I'm sorry that
Appreciate it.
you got it, Sam. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna do our broader market analysis. You guys are gonna understand how money flows and why it flows and what markets it flows to, because it's important. You want to know where to put your money during a bear market. You want to know how to hedge your position. You want to know how to, number one, capital preservation. You got to preserve your capital. And so if you know where money flows in bear markets and where it flows in bull markets, I mean, bull markets, it's pretty obvious that the shiny things are going to go. But in bear markets, you want to know exactly how to position your money. So if you want to get a good idea before that lesson, just look at commodity prices. Figure out what's going on with commodities. If you don't know what commodities are, you know, take a look at yourself. Gas is a commodity. Silver is a commodity. Gold's a commodity. Shit, wheat's a commodity. We're in an inflationary market right now. So I'll leave y'all with that, and hopefully you guys do some digging and you hit me up later. Yeah, that is all I got for us today. But yeah, thank you guys for sticking around. Those who stayed till the end, I appreciate you dearly. And yeah, I'm probably going to try to squeeze in another one this week because I owe Sam a video. He asked for a topic a week ago, and I'm going to deliver on that for you, baby. I made a promise, and I'm going to keep it.
You can do that next week too. I'm not in a rush, bro.
But I love getting content out, so I'm in a rush because I owe it to you. I'm a week late, so be on
Well,
the
I would
lookout
love
for
that.
it. Oh yeah, we'll do it this week. Why not? Give me one sec. Someone put something. You're so welcome. All right, you guys. That is it for me today. I love y'all. Be safe. Capital preservation's number one. Plan your trade. Trade your plan. Don't forget that. Don't buy blind because I will slap your wrist. All right. Take care, you guys.
Thanks a lot, brother.
Much
Peace,
love.
Clutch.
Much
Enjoy
love.
Neil.
Thanks, man. Cheers, guys.
Stop recording. Exit. Stop recording.